There's something hauntingly beautiful about standing in the shadow of an ancient Persian monument, knowing that centuries ago, master craftsmen carved these stones with hands guided by minds full of secrets. What if I told you that some of Persia's most breathtaking structures aren't just marvels of engineering or artistry, but also intricate puzzles, hiding messages meant only for those who know where to look? From cryptic symbols etched into palace walls to whispers of forgotten languages buried in the foundations of temples, these monuments guard stories that have waited centuries to be understood. Imagine walking through the ruins of Persepolis, running your fingers over the reliefs of long-gone kings, and realizing that every curl of a beard, every fold of a robe might hold a hidden meaning. Across Iran, from the soaring arches of mosques to the silent watchfulness of ancient towers, there are clues left behind by builders who knew their work would outlast them. Some of these messages were meant to inspire, others to warn, and a few, well, their true purpose remains a mystery even to the most dedicated historians. This isn't just about admiring beautiful architecture, it's about unlocking the whispers of the past. Today, we're embarking on a journey through 30 of these enigmatic Persian monuments, each one a gateway to another time, another way of thinking. You'll discover how a single column might conceal a lost prophecy, or how the alignment of a courtyard could reveal the movements of the stars as they were seen 2,000 years ago. This isn't just history, it's a treasure hunt, and the prize is a deeper understanding of a civilization that shaped the world in ways we're still unraveling. So let's step through the doorway of time together and uncover the secrets hidden in plain sight. Our first stop on this journey is the tomb of Cyrus the Great, rising from the plains of Pasargadae like a silent sentinel of history. At first glance, it's a simple stone structure, 6 weathered steps leading to a solitary chamber, but look closer and the whispers begin. The tomb's inscriptions, carved in ancient cuneiform, don't just commemorate a king, they seem to speak directly across the ages. One line in particular stands out: "O man, whoever you are and wherever you come from, for I know you shall come, I am Cyrus." It's less an epitaph and more an invitation, or perhaps a challenge, to those who would seek his legacy. Then there are the symbols. The rosettes etched into the stonework aren't mere decoration. Some scholars believe they map the movements of Venus, linking Cyrus's reign to the heavens themselves. Others argue the tomb's precise alignment with the rising sun during the equinoxes was no accident. It was a way to tie his power to the rhythms of the cosmos. Even the tomb's location, set apart from the rest of Pasargadae's ruins, suggests it was meant to be found, not hidden. But the real mystery lies in what isn't there. Unlike later Persian kings, Cyrus's tomb carries no grand boasts of conquest, no lists of vanquished enemies. Instead, it radiates a quiet confidence, as if the builder knew his message didn't need embellishment. Was it a blueprint for just rule, left for future leaders to decode? A spiritual marker meant to guide souls, or something even deeper, a cipher waiting for the right moment to reveal its truth? The stones won't say, but as the wind sighs through the ruins of Pasargadae, you can almost hear the echo of a king who planned not just for his time, but for ours. Just a short walk from Cyrus's tomb, the ruins of Persepolis rise from the earth like pages torn from a history book, and the Apadana staircase is where that story comes alive. Carved into these weathered stone steps are scenes so vivid, you'd swear the figures could step right off the walls. But this isn't just art, it's a carefully coded language of power. Every figure, every gesture, even the spacing between the carvings, seems to whisper secrets about how the Persian Empire saw itself and how it wanted the world to remember it. Take the tributary processions, for example. Delegation after delegation climbs the stairs, each group bearing gifts: Ethiopians with ivory, Babylonians leading lions, Armenians clutching intricate vessels. At first glance, it's a straightforward display of imperial might, but look closer. The posture of the Persian officials receiving these gifts isn't one of domination. Their hands are open, their expressions almost gracious. Some historians argue this was propaganda, a way to spin conquest into a narrative of voluntary allegiance. Others see something subtler, a visual treaty immortalizing diplomacy in stone. Then there are the hidden symmetries. Notice how the stairway's reliefs mirror each other perfectly, not just in design but in the smallest details, the fold of a sleeve, the angle of a spear. This wasn't just aesthetic. In a world where architecture was philosophy, balance meant order, and order meant legitimacy. The message Persia wasn't just powerful, it was precise, deliberate, a force as measured as the steps themselves. But the real mystery lies in what's missing. Among the 23 tributary nations depicted, one glaring omission stands out: the Greeks. No gifts, no envoys, no acknowledgement whatsoever. Was it oversight or a silent snub chiseled into history long before Alexander's revenge? The staircase doesn't answer. It simply waits, letting the stones speak for those who know how to listen. And then there's the lion attacking a bull, a motif repeated throughout the reliefs. Most guides will tell you it's a seasonal symbol representing the spring equinox. But follow the claws, the tension in the bull's muscles, and another theory emerges. This wasn't just about nature, it was a warning. To nations who might resist, the message was clear: Persia was the lion, and defiance would meet the bull's fate. Yet even here, there's duality. The scenes are framed by palm trees, ancient symbols of immortality. Conquest and benevolence, threat and eternity, all carved into the same stone. Standing on those steps today, you're not just seeing art, you're walking through a manifesto, one where every chisel mark was a calculated choice. The Apadana staircase doesn't just show us history, it shows us how history was meant to be remembered. And somewhere in those worn reliefs between the lines of stone, the empire's truest story might still be waiting to be read. Rising from the dust like a forgotten oracle, the Kaaba-i Zartosht at Naqsh-e Rustam defies easy explanation. This perfect cube of pale limestone, standing solitary against the cliffs where Persian kings rest in majestic tombs, feels out of place. An architectural riddle wrapped in 2.5 millennia of silence. Its name, meaning Cube of Zoroaster, only deepens the mystery. Was this a sacred fire temple where flames burned eternal for Zoroastrian priests, a vault guarding royal scrolls or treasures? Or something far stranger, its true purpose erased by time? The structure's precision is its first clue. Each side measures exactly 30 feet, a number heavy with symbolism in ancient Persian cosmology. The single doorway, raised high above the ground and accessible only by ladder, suggests something meant to be protected, or perhaps contained. Inside, the empty chamber offers no answers, only echoes. But it's the exterior inscriptions that crack the door to understanding. Carved in 3 languages, Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian, the words of the Sasanian king Shapur I boast of his victories. Yet tucked between the lines are tantalizing hints of rituals performed here, references to the glory of the gods and the divine fire. Some scholars point to the niches inside the chamber, perfect for holding sacred flames. Others note its alignment with the stars. During the summer solstice, sunlight strikes the doorway at an angle that would have illuminated a fire altar within. But the most compelling clue might be what's missing. Unlike the royal tombs surrounding it, the Kaaba has no burial shaft, no sarcophagus. Instead, its walls bear faint grooves as if shelves once lined them. Could this have been a library safeguarding texts on astronomy, medicine, or even the Avesta, Zoroastrianism's holy book? Then there's the enigma of its twin, a near-identical structure miles away, now ruined. Were they mirrors of each other, part of a larger spiritual network? The stones refuse to confirm, but stand beneath the Kaaba's shadow at dusk when the cliffs glow red, and you can almost hear the whispers of priests chanting, flames crackling, the rustle of vellum scrolls carrying secrets too potent to be lost. Whether temple, archive, or both, one truth remains: this cube was never meant to be empty. It was built to hold something the ancients believed worth preserving for eternity. And somewhere in its silence, that something still waits. Carved into the sheer cliffs of Mount Bisotun, towering 300 feet above the ancient royal road, lies what might be history's most audacious press release, the monumental inscription of Darius the Great. This sprawling tableau of rock-cut declarations isn't just a chronicle of kingship, it's a masterclass in persuasion, chiseled in stone for eternity. Picture the scene: a triumphant Darius, larger than life, his foot resting on the prone figure of the usurper Gonbad-e, while a procession of bound rebels strains against their ropes. Above them, the winged figure of Ahura Mazda hovers, blessing the king's claim. But the real power lies in the words, 1,500 lines of cuneiform script painstakingly etched in 3 languages: Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian. What makes this inscription extraordinary isn't just its scale, it's the way Darius weaponizes language. His account of seizing the throne reads less like history and more like divine drama. He claims Ahura Mazda chose him to overthrow the impostor king, framing his coup as cosmic destiny. The rebels aren't just defeated enemies, they're labeled liars in every iteration of the text, their names repeated like a mantra of condemnation. Some historians argue this was ancient spin doctoring, designed to cement his shaky legitimacy after a turbulent succession. Others see deeper layers: the careful placement of the inscription along a major trade route ensured travelers would spread his version of events across the empire. Yet for all its grandeur, the Bisotun inscription nearly became an unsolvable puzzle. When European explorers first documented it in the 17th century, the scripts were indecipherable. Old Persian had been dead for millennia. The breakthrough came when scholars noticed recurring clusters of symbols, guessing they represented royal titles. It took decades to crack the code, but once they did, it became the Rosetta Stone of ancient Persia, unlocking not just Darius's story but entire lost languages. Even today, mysteries linger. Why did Darius order the base of the cliff smoothed away, making the text unreachable without scaffolding? Was it to protect his words or to amplify their godlike inaccessibility? And what of the odd discrepancies between the 3 versions? The Babylonian text, for example, omits certain rebellious provinces mentioned in the Old Persian. A simple oversight or a deliberate edit for local audiences, the cliff face holds its secrets tight, but stand there at dawn when the first light hits the carved figures, and you can almost hear Darius's voice in the wind, still justifying, still persuading 25 centuries later. Hidden beneath the soaring stone arches of taq-e Boston, the hunting reliefs are more than just royal bragging. They're a carefully choreographed dance of power, nature, and divine right. Picture the scene: a king, frozen mid-charge on his armored steed, bow drawn as wild boars scatter through the marshes. The water ripples beneath their hooves, reeds bend under the chaos, and every muscle in the carved stone seems tense with movement. But this isn't just a celebration of the hunt, it's a manifesto. Notice how the animals aren't randomly chosen. Boars, lions, deer. Each represents something far older than the Sasanian kings who commissioned these carvings. In Persian tradition, the boar symbolized brute force, the lion embodied royal authority, and the stag stood for regeneration. By showcasing his mastery over these creatures, the king wasn't just proving his skill as a hunter. He was demonstrating his ability to control the primal forces they represented. The message: a true ruler doesn't just govern people, he tames the wildness of the world itself. The relief's composition tells another story. Unlike the rigid, formal poses of earlier Persian art, these scenes burst with life. The king's cloak billows behind him, the horse's manes fly in imagined wind. Some scholars argue this dynamic style was a deliberate break from tradition, signaling a new era where kings were portrayed as active participants in nature's drama, not distant gods on thrones. The king here isn't just observing, he's immersed, entangled in the very elements he claims to command. Then there's the strangest detail of all, the underwater banquet scene. Beneath the hunt, figures feast in a submerged grotto, their cups raised as fish swim past. Is this a nod to ancient myths of otherworldly celebrations, a metaphor for the king's ability to provide abundance even in the most unlikely places? Or perhaps a hidden reference to Zoroastrian beliefs about the spiritual refreshment awaiting the righteous? The carvers left no explanation, only this surreal snapshot of merriment beneath the chaos. What's most striking, though, is what you don't see. There are no depictions of failure, no missed shots or escaping prey. Every arrow finds its mark, every animal falls in perfect submission. This wasn't reality, it was alchemy transforming the unpredictable violence of the hunt into a ritual of absolute control. Stand before these reliefs at sunset, when the golden light sets the stone ablaze, and you can almost hear the trumpets, the baying hounds, the king's triumphant shout echoing through time. These aren't just carvings, they're a coronation in stone, proof that even nature itself bows to the rightful ruler. In the windswept plains of modern-day Khuzestan, the Chogha Zanbil ziggurat rises like a stairway abandoned by giants. Unlike any other structure in Persia, this massive step temple built by the Elamites over 3,000 years ago defies the very landscape around it. 5 terraced levels of sun-baked brick climb toward the sky, each layer a testament to a civilization obsessed with bridging earth and heaven. But what makes Chogha Zanbil extraordinary isn't just its scale, it's the whispers hidden in its very fabric. Every brick, every corridor, even the angle of its ramp seems to hold a secret waiting to be decoded. Start with the bricks themselves. Thousands of them bear cuneiform inscriptions, not just the usual royal boasts but precise construction notes. Some list the names of workers, others specify which god a particular section was dedicated to. But the most intriguing ones, they describe rituals so obscure, modern scholars still debate their meaning. One brick mentions the opening of the mouth ceremony, a phrase found in distant Mesopotamian texts but never before seen in Elam. Was this evidence of a shared religious practice? Or a clue to some lost Elamite rite involving statues that could speak? Then there's the ziggurat's alignment. Unlike Mesopotamian ziggurats facing cardinal directions, Chogha Zanbil's corners align with the sunrise during solstices. Some researchers believe the central temple once held a sacred pool reflecting certain constellations, a celestial mirror for priests to read the heavens. Others point to the peculiar drainage system where channels carved into the bricks don't just funnel rainwater but form precise geometric patterns. Could these have been part of some hydraulic ritual using water as a divine conduit? But the real mysteries lie beneath. In the 1960s, archaeologists discovered hidden chambers within the ziggurat's base rooms with no obvious entrances, their walls lined with bitumen to repel moisture. Inside they found nothing, no artifacts, no remains, just empty space. Yet the sheer effort to conceal these rooms suggests they held something immensely valuable. Some theorize they were spiritual batteries designed to accumulate sacred energy. Others suggest they housed oracles who received visions in total darkness. The most haunting detail, Chogha Zanbil was never finished. The bricks grow cruder toward the upper levels as if workers fled mid-task. Was it invasion, a religious taboo, or did the Elamites abandon it because they realized their stairway to the gods was too perfect, that some doors once opened shouldn't be closed? Walk its ruined ramps today and you'll find inscriptions warning trespassers of divine wrath. After 3 millennia, the message still lingers. Some secrets aren't meant to be uncovered. Nestled in the heart of Hamadan, the tomb of Esther and Mordecai stands as a quiet enigma, a Jewish shrine wrapped in Persian architecture, its very existence a testament to survival. The domed brick structure, with its unassuming exterior, conceals layers of controversy. Some historians insist this is the final resting place of the biblical Esther and her uncle Mordecai, heroes of the Purim story who saved Persia's Jews from annihilation. Others argue the tomb belongs to a different Queen Shushenducht, a Jewish consort to the Sasanian king Yazdijerd I. The debate isn't just academic, it's a mirror reflecting the complexities of Jewish identity in Persian history. Step inside and the symbolism unfolds. The hexagonal base, rare in Persian architecture, echoes the Star of David when viewed from above, a subtle nod to faith in a land where Jewish communities have thrived for millennia. The walls bear Hebrew inscriptions so weathered they're nearly whispers, but one phrase stands out: "Remember the days of old." It's a deliberate echo of Deuteronomy, yet here, in this context, it feels less like scripture and more like a covert message to future generations. Then there's the ceiling. Its intricate stucco patterns aren't merely decorative, they form a geometric labyrinth reminiscent of Solomon's temple. Some scholars see this as a hidden map, a way to preserve sacred knowledge during times of persecution. Others point to the tomb's alignment with Jerusalem, suggesting it was built as a spiritual compass guiding prayers westward, but the most compelling clue lies beneath the mausoleum. Local legends speak of a tunnel system stretching toward the ancient city of Susa, where Esther's story unfolded. Whether myth or reality, the symbolism is potent, a hidden path beneath a visible shrine, echoing the duality of Jewish life in Persia, public devotion paired with private resilience. The tomb's enduring mystery isn't just about who lies within. It's about why this site became a pilgrimage point for Jews across centuries, even as empires rose and fell around it. The answer might lie in the quiet defiance of its design, a monument that doesn't shout its significance but whispers it, ensuring only those who truly listen will understand. Piercing the sky like a spear cast by some ancient mathematician king, the Gonbad-e Qabus Tower stands alone on the plains of northern Iran, a 1,000-year-old riddle carved in brick. At first glance, it seems simple, a soaring cylindrical tower capped by a conical roof, its sun-baked surface etched with 10 triangular buttresses, but look closer and the precision becomes unnerving. Every measurement hums with intention. The tower's height, exactly 72 feet, the same number as its interior steps, and a number sacred in Islamic cosmology representing the traditional sects of the faith. Its diameter, precisely half its height, a perfect golden ratio echoing through the architecture like a whispered equation. Then there's the Kufic inscription circling the tower near its peak, carved in bold script that seems to shift when you squint. Translated, it proclaims the tower's construction in 976 AD under the Ziyarid dynasty. But the letters themselves hold secrets. Some scholars note the spacing between words follows numeric patterns, possibly encoding celestial data or mathematical constants known to Persian scholars. The most tantalizing theory suggests the entire inscription functions as a sundial. During equinoxes, shadows cast by the brickwork align with specific letters, marking solar events with silent precision. But the tower's true genius might lie in what it does with sound. Stand directly beneath the conical dome and whisper, your voice carries with unnatural clarity, as if the chamber itself were shaped to amplify secrets. Was this an accident, or were the architects playing with acoustics centuries before the science was formally understood? Some believe the tower served as a vertical observatory, its hollow core aligning with certain stars when viewed from the interior staircase. Others argue its dimensions encode the solar year, each brick representing a day, the structure itself a calendar in 3 dimensions. The most haunting mystery, though, is why such a monument stands in this lonely place. No palace ruins surround it, no city walls, just the tower, solitary as a sentinel. Local legends say the Ziyarid ruler Qabus ordered it built as his tomb, yet no body was ever found inside. Maybe the tower was never meant to hold bones. Maybe it's something far stranger, a beacon for knowledge, a stone hymn to the marriage of science and faith, or even as some fringe theorists suggest a 1,000-year-old message to the future, written in geometry only now becoming clear. Rising from the edge of the Lut Desert like a mirage given solid form, the arg-e isn't just a citadel, it's a labyrinth of meanings. Before the earthquake of 2003 shook its ancient walls, this sprawling mud brick complex was one of the best preserved examples of Persian urban planning, a city within walls that seemed to breathe with intention. Every alley, every arch, every sudden turn in its maze-like streets whispers of design beyond mere defense. Some scholars argue its layout mirrors celestial patterns, with main thoroughfares aligning to the path of Venus during significant festivals. Others see a geometric cipher where the angles of intersecting roads form sacred Zoroastrian symbols visible only from the air. Walk its ruined paths today, and you'll notice something unsettling. The citadel's outer walls don't just repel invaders, they mislead. Curved gates force entrants to slow their approach, while dead-end alleys funnel attackers into killing zones. But the most ingenious detail, the entire city slopes slightly downward toward the center. This wasn't just about drainage. In sieges, defenders could unleash torrents of water or burning oil, turning the streets themselves into weapons. The arg-e didn't just withstand assault, it anticipated them, turning the very ground beneath an enemy's feet into a trap. Then there are the whispers of something deeper. Before the quake, archaeologists documented odd recesses in certain walls, perfectly sized to hold oil lamps. When mapped, these niches trace the constellation of Taurus, the bull, sacred to ancient Persian fertility cults. Was the citadel secretly a temple in disguise? A place where the rituals of earth and sky played out in brick and shadow. The earthquake that shattered Bam in 2003 exposed another mystery. As rubble was cleared, workers uncovered older layers of construction beneath, and the patterns were different. The original streets followed a grid unseen in later Persian architecture, more reminiscent of Harappan cities 1,000 miles east. Had Bam's builders preserved some lost blueprint from a forgotten trade route, the evidence burned with the sun-baked bricks, leaving only questions. Today, restoration teams work stitch by stitch to revive the citadel, but some things can't be rebuilt. The quake erased subtle hollows in certain walls' chambers once thought to amplify whispers between guard posts. Were these ancient surveillance tools or something more mystical? The surviving guards, old men who patrolled the ruins before the disaster, speak of nights when the wind would catch those hollows just right, and the whole fortress would seem to hum like a tuning fork. Maybe it was the desert playing tricks, or maybe the walls were singing one last coded message before they fell. Cutting through the bedrock of Shushta like veins of liquid history, the hydraulic system isn't just an engineering marvel, it's a symphony in stone and water composed by Persian hydrologists over 2,000 years ago. Picture this, a network of canals, dams, and watermills so advanced, it turned the entire city into a living machine. The Gargaweer still stands today, its curved face defying the river's currents with the same elegant precision it did when Roman prisoners of war first laid its stones under Persian supervision. But these aren't mere walls, they're whispers in hydraulics, each curve and channel spelling out messages about how the Sasanians viewed their relationship with nature. Take the placement of the Band-e Mizan Dam. Unlike Roman aqueducts that conquered landscapes, this structure works with the river's natural flow, dividing water into precise ratios for irrigation, mills, and drinking channels. The proportions aren't random, they follow ancient Zoroastrian principles of balance between the elements. Some researchers believe the system's layout mirrors celestial patterns, with major channels aligning to constellations during Nowruz, the Persian New Year. Others point to the coded markings found on certain sluice gates, symbols that might track water allocation to different districts, or even encode mathematical formulas for optimal flow rates. Then there's the haunting beauty of the watermills, carved into cliffs where the force of falling water turns massive wooden wheels. These weren't just practical, they were philosophical statements. The rhythmic churning echoes Zoroastrian hymns to Varukasha, the cosmic sea, suggesting the Persians saw their hydraulic system as a miniature cosmology. Even the sound was orchestrated. Certain tunnels amplify the water's roar during floods, creating warning tones that resonate through the city, an ancient alarm system written in acoustics. Most intriguing are the blind channels, tunnels that dead-end abruptly. At first glance, they seem like construction errors, but recent sonar scans reveal something extraordinary. These passages connect to underground chambers, possibly filtration systems or secret meeting spaces. One theory suggests they were spiritual retreats where priests could meditate to the sound of rushing water, believed to carry divine wisdom. Another posits they served as emergency overflow routes, designed to activate only during catastrophic floods, a failsafe hidden in plain sight. Standing amid the cascades today, you're not just seeing engineering, you're witnessing a manifesto in motion. Every drop of water flowing through Shushta carries the ghost of a philosophy that saw technology not as domination over nature, but as conversation with it. The real message of these stones isn't about Persian superiority. It's about harmony encoded in hydraulics, a lesson from the past that still ripples through time. The palace of Ardashir I in Firuzabad doesn't just sit on the earth, it seems to converse with it. Built at the foot of a mountain, its domes and arches mirror the surrounding ridges, as if the very stones were trying to become part of the landscape. But step inside and the walls tell a different story. Here, beneath layers of dust and time, are carvings so precise, so deliberate, they feel less like decoration and more like a language waiting to be deciphered. Take the recurring 12-petal rosettes carved into the ceilings. At first glance, they resemble simple floral motifs, but count the petals and you'll notice something uncanny, 12 matching the months of the Zoroastrian calendar. Some scholars argue these aren't just artistic choices, they're celestial maps. When sunlight filters through the palace's strategically placed windows during solstices, the shadows align with specific petals, marking the turning of seasons with stone and light precision. It's as if the building itself was designed to track time, turning the heavens into a silent participant in courtly life. Then there are the geometric patterns adorning the throne room. Interlocking hexagons and triangles form tessellations so complex they wouldn't look out of place in a medieval grimoire, but these aren't random designs. Modern mathematicians have found startling parallels between these patterns and sacred geometry described in Zoroastrian texts, particularly the Vara, a mythical enclosure said to preserve creation's divine blueprint. Was Ardashir's palace meant to echo this celestial stronghold? The answer might lie in the one anomaly, a single asymmetrical star hidden among hundreds of perfect shapes. Its irregularity is so subtle, most visitors miss it, but for those who notice, it raises a tantalizing question. Was this a craftsman's error or a deliberate flaw? A Zoroastrian nod to the belief that only divinity achieves true perfection. The most haunting symbols, though, are the ones no one can explain. Along the palace's eastern corridor, faint carvings depict figures with elongated limbs and crescent-shaped headdresses, their hands raised as if summoning something unseen. Unlike other Sasanian art, these figures lack inscriptions or identifying markers. Some researchers link them to Anahita, the water goddess whose worship predated Zoroastrianism. Others see parallels to Mesopotamian star deities, but perhaps the most compelling theory comes from the palace's alignment. During the spring equinox, the rising sun illuminates these figures for exactly 12 minutes before the light shifts, a phenomenon too precise to be accidental. What were the builders trying to say? A warning, a prayer, or something more profound? A coded message about the intersection of kingship and cosmos, meant only for those who knew where to look. The stones hold their silence, but walk these halls at dawn when the first light spills across the carvings, and you might just catch a whisper of the truth. Rising from the grasslands of northwestern Iran, taq-e Solomon, the throne of Solomon, is a place where fire and water defy nature's logic. At its heart lies an emerald-green crater lake fed by mineral-rich springs so ancient, local legend claims they were dug by King Solomon himself. But it's not just the lake's surreal beauty that captivates, it's what might lie beneath its shimmering surface. This wasn't just any body of water to the Sasanian kings who built their most sacred fire temple on its shores. To them, this lake was a threshold between worlds, a mirror reflecting both earthly power and divine secrets. Dive into the myths and the waters grow even murkier. Medieval texts speak of treasures hidden beneath the lake, not gold or jewels, but something far stranger. Zoroastrian priests supposedly submerged sacred objects here during invasions. Ritual vessels, inscribed metal plates, even the legendary Cup of Jamshid, said to reveal all the world's knowledge to those pure enough to drink from it. Some historians speculate these weren't just stories. Scans of the lakebed reveal unnatural shapes resting in the depths, though silt and mineral deposits have kept them just out of reach. The temple complex surrounding the lake adds fuel to the mystery. Its layout mirrors Zoroastrian cosmography, with the lake representing Varukasha, the cosmic sea, and the eternal fire altars symbolizing divine light. But there's an oddity. The temple's drainage system doesn't channel water away from the sacred precincts. Instead, it deliberately directs runoff back into the lake, as if maintaining some precise equilibrium. Recent excavations uncovered channels lined with silver, a metal sacred to Zoroastrians for its purity. Were these conduits for liquid offerings or part of a grand alchemical experiment to charge the waters with spiritual energy? Then there are the whispers of rituals lost to time. 10th century traveler Al-Makdisi described midnight ceremonies where priests cast objects into the lake while chanting verses from the Avesta. Modern archaeologists have found evidence of submerged platforms, possibly stages for these rites, and peculiar notches carved into the lakeside stones, perfectly spaced to hold torches that would double their reflection on the water's surface. Imagine the scene: fire above, fire below, and between them, priests performing rituals meant to bridge the two. But the lake's greatest secret might be its chemistry. Unlike most crater lakes, taq-e Solomon's waters contain trace elements found nowhere else in the region, including lithium, known in antiquity for producing vivid visionary states. Was this why Zoroastrian texts describe initiates drinking from the lake before receiving prophecies? The Sasanians certainly believed these waters held power. When their last king, Yazdijerd III, fled before the Arab conquest, chronicles claim he took one final vial of lake water, hoping it might preserve his divine right to rule. Standing by the shore today, watching the steam curl off the lake's warm surface, it's easy to understand why this place felt enchanted. The waters don't just conceal artifacts, they guard an entire way of seeing the world, one where the boundaries between ritual and reality, earth and heaven, were as fluid as the lake itself. Whether the treasures are physical or metaphorical, one thing is certain: taq-e Solomon wasn't built to impress mortals, it was built to speak to gods. Deep in the mountains of Kangavar, the ruins of the Anahita temple rise like a dream half-remembered, a place where water wasn't just worshipped but architecturally enshrined. Unlike typical Persian temples centered around fire altars, this sprawling complex is built around a network of channels, pools, and cascades so intricate they transform the structure into a liquid hymn. Walk through what remains of its colonnaded halls, and you'll notice something startling. The floor slopes ever so slightly, guiding rainwater toward a central basin in a ritual of gravity and grace. This wasn't accidental. Every stone here whispers the name of Anahita, the pre-Zoroastrian goddess of water's fertility, wisdom, and the lifeblood of the earth itself. The temple's design holds its first clue in the alignment of its waterways. Channels don't just run straight, they curve in deliberate serpentine patterns, mirroring the sacred rivers described in ancient Avestan texts. Some scholars argue these weren't merely decorative. When filled during ceremonies, the flowing water would have created hypnotic eddies, its sound amplified by the hollow spaces beneath the stone floors, a sensory experience meant to induce trance states. The central pool, precisely 20 cubits wide, a number sacred to Anahita's cult, is fed by natural springs that never run dry, even in drought. Local legends claim the water holds healing properties, but the temple's builders seem to have believed something more profound, that this spot was where the goddess's power breached our world. Then there are the niches. Dozens of them line the inner walls, each carved at a height that suggests they once held statues or offerings. But look closer. The back of each niche is subtly concave, designed to reflect torchlight onto the water's surface after dark. Imagine the effect during ceremonies. Flickering flames multiplied 100-fold in the rippling pool, turning the entire temple into a shimmering constellation. Was this meant to mirror the ancient belief that Anahita's celestial form was the Milky Way, her stars reflected in earthly waters? The symbolism deepens when you consider the temple's orientation. During the summer solstice, the rising sun strikes the water at an angle that sends a spear of light directly onto a now missing altar. A fleeting marriage of fire and liquid, perhaps reenacting the moment creation sprang from their union. But the most haunting secrets lie beneath the temple. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed submerged chambers accessible only through narrow, water-filled tunnels. Persian texts mention the trial of the sacred stream, a rite where initiates waded through darkness to prove their devotion. Were these chambers part of that ordeal? Or something darker? Sasanian records allude to the weighing of souls conducted near Anahita's altars, possibly involving water displacement rituals akin to the Egyptian judgment of the dead. Perhaps the temple's true message isn't in any single feature, but in the way it forces a re-evaluation of Persian spirituality. We think of ancient Persia as a land of fire worshippers, yet here stands proof of a parallel tradition, one where life's essence wasn't just flames, but the flow that sustains them. The last hint: coins found nearby depict Anahita holding not just a water vessel, but a key. The temple's builders may have left us both. The water is the lock. The architecture is the key, and the goddess's secrets still ripple just beneath the surface, waiting. Rising from the desert plains like a sandstorm frozen mid-swirl, Rayan castles' towering mud brick walls tell a story far more complex than their earthen hue suggests. This medieval fortress, often overshadowed by its more famous cousin Bam, hides a masterclass in defensive genius within its sun-baked ramparts. Every curve of its battlements, every angle of its watchtowers, even the texture of its bricks, these aren't just architectural choices. They're a coded language, a three-dimensional manual on how medieval Persia outmaneuvered its enemies without drawing a sword. Take the castle's outer walls, their surface rippling with alternating rows of smooth and ridged bricks. At first glance, this seems decorative until you learn those ridges aren't random. They follow precise mathematical intervals, creating an optical illusion that makes the walls appear to shimmer when viewed from a distance. Historical accounts describe how invading armies would report the fortress breathing or shifting as they approached, a psychological trick that sowed confusion before battle even began. But the real secret lies in the ridge's depth. Each groove is exactly wide enough to catch the desert wind, channeling it through hidden cavities in the walls that amplify the sound into an eerie howl. Imagine being a soldier hearing ghostly wails emanating from seemingly solid walls, nature itself weaponized against your morale. Then there's the castle's labyrinthine entrance, a maze of zigzagging corridors and sudden dead ends that feels almost alive in its deception. Unlike European castles with their drawbridges and portcullises, Rayan's gates employ subtler warfare. The main passage forces attackers to turn left 7 times before reaching the inner courtyard, a deliberate nod to Persian cosmology, where 7 represents the steps to enlightenment repurposed as a gauntlet of death. Each turn narrows progressively, funneling invaders into spaces where only 1 or 2 could pass at a time, rendering numerical superiority useless. Archers' niches above these choke points aren't placed at uniform heights. They alternate between knee level and overhead angles, ensuring no shield formation could protect against the rain of arrows. But the most astonishing messages are written in the bricks themselves. Certain sections of the walls bear faint impressions patterns resembling fish scales or honeycombs. Recent studies suggest these weren't craftsmen's signatures, but tactical diagrams pressed into the clay before firing. The scale patterns correspond exactly to areas where the walls are thickest, marking optimal points to withstand battering rams. The hexagonal motifs, they outline hidden chambers within the walls where boiling oil or quicklime could be stored, ready to pour through nearly invisible slits in the battlements. Even the brick's composition holds clues. Samples from different sections reveal varying mixtures of straw and clay, creating sections that absorb siege engine impacts while others shatter deliberately to trap weapons in brittle fractures. Perhaps the castle's most chilling feature is what isn't there. Unlike European fortresses with their dramatic arrow loops, Rayan's murder holes are almost undetectable tiny funnel-shaped openings in ceilings that allowed defenders to drop projectiles with pinpoint accuracy while remaining completely shielded. The real stroke of brilliance, their placement aligns with the sun's path at different hours, ensuring attackers were always blinded when looking upward while defenders had perfect visibility. This wasn't just architecture, it was solar warfare, turning celestial mechanics into a tactical advantage centuries before GPS. Legends say the castle's builders mixed the mortar with egg whites and goat's blood for strength, but science reveals a smarter secret layers of compressed salt between brick courses that chemically bond over time, creating a self-healing effect when walls are damaged. Somewhere between alchemy and engineering, Rayan's architects encoded their knowledge in materials, knowing future generations might need to rebuild from the ruins. Standing in its shadow today, you're not just seeing a fortress, you're reading a manifesto, one where every brick whispers the same truth. The best defense isn't just strength, but deception, patience, and an intimate dance with the elements themselves. Tucked away in the quiet corners of Tus, the Unravel dome stands as a silent keeper of Sufi secrets, a structure where geometry, poetry, and divine longing merge into stone. At first glance, it appears deceptively simple, a modest brick dome rising above the surrounding plains, but step inside and the walls begin to speak in riddles. The interior calligraphy isn't just decorative. It's a labyrinth of sacred verses woven with hidden meanings, each curve of the script mirroring the whirling dance of dervishes who may have once gathered here. Some scholars argue the dome was a meeting place for mystics, its very architecture designed to amplify their chants into celestial resonance. The connection to Ferdowsi, Persia's legendary poet, adds another layer of intrigue. Though best known for the Shahnameh, his epic of kings and heroes, local lore insists Ferdowsi frequented this dome, seeking inspiration from Sufi masters. The evidence, faint inscriptions along the base of the dome, bear striking parallels to verses in his lesser-known mystical works, lines that speak of the candle's flame dissolving into light, a metaphor for the soul's union with the divine. Even the dome's proportions seem to echo his poetry. Its height matches the numerical value of the Arabic word wisdom, hikmah, a number revered in Sufi numerology, while the diameter aligns with the gematria of love, ishq. Coincidence or a deliberate cipher left by builders who saw numbers as divine language? Then there are the acoustics. Whisper a phrase near the dome's western arch, and the sound travels unnaturally along the curved walls, reaching the opposite side with eerie clarity, a phenomenon known as the whispering gallery effect. Sufi texts describe similar auditory marvels in their accounts of sacred spaces, where whispered prayers were believed to ascend directly to heaven, but the Haruniyeh's acoustics hold a darker secret. During restoration work in the 1990s, workers discovered hollow cavities within the dome's brickwork, precisely positioned to amplify specific frequencies. When certain Sufi chants, like the La ilaha illallah, are sung at the correct pitch, The entire structure hums in harmony, vibrating as if alive. Was this sonic engineering intentional? A physical manifestation of the Sufi belief that sound could dissolve the boundary between earthly and eternal. The most tantalizing clue, though, lies in the dome's orientation. Unlike typical Islamic structures aligned toward Mecca, the Haruniyeh points slightly northeast, directly toward Mount Damavand, the volcanic peak revered in Zoroastrianism as the prison of the mythical tyrant Zahak. Some interpret this as a bold syncretism, a nod to Persia's spiritual past woven into its Islamic present. Others see a more practical purpose. At dawn on the summer solstice, sunlight enters through a narrow window and strikes a carved rosette on the interior wall, illuminating a single word, fana, the Sufi term for annihilation of the self in God. Standing beneath the dome today, you're not just surrounded by bricks and mortar. You're standing inside an instrument tuned to the frequency of transcendence, where every architectural choice whispers of a truth beyond words. Whether the Haruniyeh was a poet's sanctuary, a mystic's laboratory, or something deeper still, one thing is clear: its builders didn't just construct a building. They encoded an invitation to listen, to unravel, and ultimately to disappear into the mystery. The Jame Mosque of Isfahan isn't just a building, it's a palimpsest of devotion where 12 centuries of prayers have been etched into the very walls. Every brick, every tile, every soaring arch tells a story of dynasties that came, saw, and left their mark. But the real magic lies in the details you almost miss. Take the mosaics shimmering across the courtyard walls. At first glance, they're a kaleidoscope of geometric perfection, but stand at just the right angle as the sun dips low and something extraordinary happens. Hidden within the intricate patterns, Quranic verses emerge like whispers in the tilework, letters woven so cunningly into the design. They're invisible until light and perspective conspire to reveal them. These aren't mere decorations, they're cryptographic masterpieces, designed so the sacred reveals itself only to those who linger with intention. Some scholars believe this was a deliberate choice by Seljuk artisans, a way to encode divine messages within art itself. The technique, known as interlaced script, transforms calligraphy into a spiritual scavenger hunt. One of the most striking examples appears in the Winter Prayer Hall. A single tile, when viewed from the northern entrance at noon, reflects sunlight to illuminate the word Allah in gold. A fleeting miracle of optics and faith that vanishes if you take even half a step sideways. But the mosque's secrets run deeper than light play. Beneath the famed blue dome of the Seljuk era, archaeologists have uncovered fragments of older, simpler designs, traces of the original Abbasid structure from the 8th century. The real revelation: some of these earlier bricks bear faint indentations, markings that match the dimensions of even older Sasanian fire temples. It's as if each conquering faith didn't erase what came before, but built upon it, creating a silent dialogue between religions etched in clay and glaze. Then there's the matter of the mosque's ever-shifting acoustics. The dome's curvature creates pockets where a murmured prayer near the mihrab can be heard clearly 30 feet away, while shouts from the courtyard fade to nothing. Some claim this was an auditory allegory. The closer you are to the Qibla, the clearer divine truth becomes. Others point to the strategic placement of hollow terracotta jars within the walls, an ancient sound engineering trick that amplifies the imam's voice without echo. Perhaps the most tantalizing mystery lies in the ceiling's muqarnas, those honeycombed stalactite vaults that seem to defy gravity. Look closely and you'll notice their patterns aren't random. Mathematical analysis reveals they follow sequences found in Fibonacci's Liber Abaci centuries before Fibonacci himself wrote it. Were Persian architects privy to European mathematical breakthroughs, or did they discover these principles independently? The answer might be hidden in the mosque's library, where medieval manuscripts describe a science of celestial harmony used to guide the vault's construction. Walking through this labyrinth of devotion, you realize the Jame Mosque was never meant to be seen just once. its messages unfold slowly, layer by layer, much like the faith it embodies. From the Zoroastrian echoes in its foundations to the Quranic puzzles in its tiles, every corner holds a secret waiting for the right light, the right angle, the right moment to reveal itself. This isn't just architecture, it's a living conversation across time where every generation left a whisper and the walls are still talking. Rising above Isfahan's Naqsh-e Square, Ali Kapu Palace's iconic balcony frames a view fit for kings, but its true marvel lies hidden inside, behind a deceptively plain door on the 6th floor. The music room isn't just a chamber, it's an instrument carved from wood and plaster designed to sing. From floor to ceiling, every surface blooms with intricate stucco reliefs, vases, flowers, and geometric patterns so finely detailed they seem to flutter in the candlelight. But lean closer and you'll notice something unsettling. Those hollowed-out shapes aren't merely decorative, they're precisely sized, angled, and spaced to catch sound waves like a spider's web catching dew. The acoustic magic reveals itself when you stand in the center of the room. A whisper against one wall travels along the curved niches and rebounds with eerie clarity to the opposite corner, an effect that defies the laws of physics as we understand them today. Safavid court records describe how musicians would perform here for Shah Abbas, their notes bouncing between the cavities to create harmonies no instrument could produce alone. Some say certain combinations of sounds would trigger hidden resonances, causing the entire room to hum like a struck wine glass. The question is, was this sonic sorcery accidental, or did 17th century Persian architects possess knowledge of acoustics we've only recently rediscovered? The ceiling holds the first clue. Its complex muqarnas vaulting isn't random, each honeycombed compartment corresponds to a specific musical interval. Modern audio engineers have mapped them to the Persian dastgah modal system, suggesting the room was tuned like a giant oud. Even more astonishing is how the plaster's composition, a mix of gypsum, egg whites, and hemp fibers, absorbs harsh frequencies while amplifying warm tones. This wasn't just architecture, it was auditory alchemy. Then there's the enigma of the silent notes. Some niches, when tested, fail to reflect sound at all. At first, this seems like a flaw until you consider Sufi teachings about the unheard melodies of the divine. Were these voids deliberate, representing the pauses between notes that give music meaning? The palace's builders left no blueprints, only whispered legends of a blind architect who designed the room by ear, claiming the walls would sing the truth to those who listen beyond hearing. Perhaps the most haunting secret lies in what happens when the room is empty. Guards report hearing faint, discordant notes drifting through the chambers at dawn, echoes of long-vanished concerts or something more profound. The music room doesn't just amplify sound, it bends time, turning architecture into a vessel for whispers centuries old. Stand here long enough and you might just catch a phrase from Shah Abbas himself, his voice woven into the very plaster, waiting for the right moment to resonate again. Step inside Vank Cathedral in Isfahan, and the first thing that strikes you is the collision, or perhaps the harmony, of two worlds. The walls explode with biblical frescoes painted in the vivid style of European Renaissance masters, yet every arch and dome whispers Persian, secrets in geometric patterns stolen from the Safavid palaces next door. This isn't just a church, it's a cipher, a sanctuary where 17th century Armenian refugees encoded their survival story into the very plaster. Look up at the ceiling's central panel where Christ ascends amidst swirling clouds. The scene seems typical at first glance, but focus on the angelic hosts flanking him. Their almond-shaped eyes and delicate hands mirror the miniatures in contemporary Persian manuscripts. Even more telling are their garments. The celestial robes fold in crisp, angular pleats identical to those worn by Shah Abbas's courtiers in nearby murals. Was this flattery toward their Muslim protectors, or a sly assertion that heaven itself dressed in Persian silks? The real intrigue lies in the peripheral scenes. Along the lower walls, frescoes depict Armenian martyrs burning at the stake, but the executioners' faces are oddly blurred, their features scrubbed away by later hands. Local guides claim this was self-censorship during political tensions, yet some historians spot something stranger. Infrared imaging reveals underlayers where the tormentors wore distinct Safavid turbans, their expressions carefully painted to resemble actual Persian officials. Were these original portraits of the very men who both persecuted and protected Isfahan's Christians? The cathedral's archives hint at the duality. Records speak of Armenian artists paid handsomely by the Shah to decorate his mosques, even as their kin faced discrimination. Then there's the cryptogram hidden in the floral borders. What appear to be standard vine motifs conceal tiny Armenian letters spelling out names and dates, a clandestine memorial to those lost during forced relocations. The most poignant is near the baptismal font. Squiggles in the grape leaves resolve into the word Chogha, the destroyed homeland whose rubble was carried here as ballast in merchant caravans. The builders literally cemented their grief into the foundations, but the cathedral's boldest fusion is its exterior tilework. At the entrance, the Islamic crescent moon cradles a cross in its curve, an unthinkable motif in most Christian architecture, yet here it feels inevitable. Some say it represents the Armenian Apostolic Church's lunar calendar, others that it's a nod to Persian patrons who donated the tiles. The truth might be simpler. In a land where survival depended on cultural alchemy, the artists didn't just borrow motifs. They reinvented them, creating a visual language where devotion had two grammars and God wore both faces. Stand beneath the dome's acoustics, another Persian engineering marvel, and you'll hear whispers carry like secrets passed between faiths. Maybe that's the real message of Vank, not a story of separation, but of voices layered so closely they become impossible to untangle. The cathedral doesn't hide its contradictions. It consecrates them. Perched on a cliff where the wind howls like a sentinel keeping watch, Calais Doctor, the Maiden Castle defies logic. This 7th century fortress, built by the founder of the Sasanian dynasty, Ardashir I, doesn't just occupy high ground, it clings to the edge of impossibility. The approach alone feels like a test, a narrow, winding path cut into the rock face, forcing any would-be invader to traverse single file under the watchful eyes of archers hidden in slots no wider than a handspan. But the real mystery isn't just how this castle was defended, it's why it was built here at all. The fortress's location makes little military sense. Unlike other Sasanian strongholds positioned along trade routes or near cities, Calais Doctor guards nothing but barren cliffs and a river too treacherous for navigation. Some historians argue it was a symbolic gesture, Ardashir's way of proclaiming his dominion over even the most inhospitable terrain. Others point to the sparse but tantalizing inscriptions found inside, fragmentary cuneiform lines that speak of the king's fire and the purity of the vault. These cryptic phrases have led scholars down a rabbit hole of speculation. Was this a treasury for sacred Zoroastrian flames, kept far from population centers to avoid desecration? A hiding place for royal regalia during times of unrest? Or something more esoteric, a site chosen not for earthly strategy but celestial alignment? The architecture deepens the puzzle. The castle's uppermost chamber, accessible only by a staircase so narrow it feels more like a ladder, contains an anomaly, a perfectly circular depression in the floor, ringed by channels that may have once held liquid. At noon on the summer solstice, sunlight streams through a slit in the wall, striking the center of this basin with uncanny precision. Zoroastrian texts describe rituals involving the measuring of the heavens, where priests used sunlight and water to calculate astrological events. Could this have been their observatory, a place where kings communed with the cosmos to legitimize their rule? Then there's the matter of the name. Maiden Castle suggests inviolability, but folklore whispers another tale. Local legends speak of a princess imprisoned here, her likeness faintly visible in the streaks of mineral deposits on one wall. The truth is likely more pragmatic. The term might reference the fortress's untouched state, never breached by force. Yet the absence of battle damage raises its own questions. Why invest in such an impregnable stronghold if it never saw combat? Perhaps the answer lies in what isn't there. Unlike grand palaces, Calais Doctor lacks frescoes, throne rooms, or any trace of opulence. Its walls are raw functionality, but in their very austerity, they speak volumes. This wasn't a place for living. It was a place for keeping secrets, treasures, or rituals too potent for the public eye. The wind rushing through its empty halls still carries echoes of those choices. Sometimes the best way to protect something is to hide it in plain sight, on a cliff where no one would think to look. Nestled in the rugged folds of the Caucasus Mountains, a Biene village doesn't just cling to the cliff, it seems to whisper to them. The first thing you'll notice is the color, a sea of red mud brick houses, their hues shifting from burnt sienna at dawn to deep crimson at dusk, as if the earth itself is bleeding into the architecture. But the real magic lies in the details most visitors miss. Look closely at the wooden doors, the window frames, even the uneven cobblestones underfoot, and you'll find them etched with symbols that defy simple explanation. Zigzags like lightning bolts, interlocking circles resembling celestial orbits, and motifs that look halfway between plant tendrils and written script. These aren't random scratches. They're a language without alphabets, a code left by people who believed even bricks could carry prayers. Start with the most pervasive symbol, the sunburst. Carved into lintels and pressed into clay before firing, these radiating lines appear at nearly every threshold. At face value, they might seem like simple decorations. But their placement tells another story. Each sunburst aligns to catch the first or last light of solstice days, marking doorways as temporal gateways. Some scholars argue these are vestiges of Zoroastrian sun worship, a way to invite divine light into homes. Others point to local folklore that describes the symbols as light traps, charms to capture the sun's energy and ward off the mountain's harsh winters. The evidence: houses with the most intricate sunbursts tend to be the warmest, their thick mud walls absorbing and retaining heat with uncanny efficiency. Then there are the animal motifs. Unlike the grand lion and bull carvings of Persepolis, Abiene's creatures are humble but haunting. Stylized goats with spiraling horns, birds whose wings form perfect geometric arcs. These aren't just artistic flourishes. Oral traditions passed down through generations describe rituals where families would carve their livestock's likenesses into door frames after a successful breeding season, a tactile gratitude to forces older than Islam or Zoroastrianism. The most intriguing examples are the three-legged hens found near rooftop gutters. Local elders insist these were rain charms, their uneven legs symbolizing the imbalance needed to tip the scales toward fertility. Modern hydrologists found a grain of truth here. Homes with these symbols consistently sit atop natural aquifers, their builders somehow intuiting water's hidden paths. But the village's most enigmatic symbols are the ones that resist categorization. On the northern side of the oldest house, a series of interconnected triangles resemble nothing so much as a molecular diagram, a pattern that wouldn't be out of place in a quantum physics textbook. Anthropologists are divided. Some see parallels to ancient fire altars, where triangular arrangements represented the sacred trinity of earth, water, and sky. Others suggest they're numeric symbols, a rustic accounting system for grain stores. The most compelling theory comes from a 9th century manuscript found in nearby Kashan, describing the builders' marks of the red villages as a way to encode architectural knowledge ratios for stable construction in earthquake-prone terrain. Perhaps the real secret of Abiene's symbols lies in their collective presence. Walk the labyrinthine alleys and you'll notice they cluster in specific patterns. Sunbursts dominate south-facing walls, animal motifs guard food storage areas, and abstract designs crown the oldest foundations. This isn't random. It's a spatial language, a three-dimensional map of beliefs and practical wisdom fused into the village's bones. The symbols don't just decorate a biennale, they sustain it, turning every wall into a teacher, every doorway into a manuscript waiting to be read. Stand here at twilight when the shadows stretch the carvings into new shapes, and you'll understand, this isn't a village that keeps its secrets, it's a village that whispers them to anyone patient enough to listen. Chogha's shrine in Shiraz doesn't just shimmer, it breathes light. Step inside and you're swallowed by a galaxy of glass where millions of mirror fragments tile every surface from the soaring dome down to the narrowest alcove. At first, the effect is overwhelming, a cacophony of reflections that fractures the world into infinite pieces. But stand still long enough and the chaos resolves into something deeper. The mirrors aren't placed randomly. They follow a precise hierarchy, larger, geometrically cut pieces near the base, ascending to smaller, irregular shards near the apex, as if guiding the eye and the soul from earthly order to celestial abandon. Some call it artistry, others insist it's alchemy. Sufi poets who worshipped here centuries ago wrote of the mirrors as metaphors for the soul's journey, each fragmented reflection representing human imperfection, yet together creating a brilliance that rivals the sun. The symbolism is deliberate. In classical Persian mysticism, polished steel mirrors were tools for spiritual vision, believed to capture glimpses of the divine. Chogha's architects took this idea literally, transforming an entire sanctuary into a metaphysical mirror. The effect is uncanny. Candlelight doesn't just illuminate the space, it multiplies, bouncing between surfaces until the air itself seems to vibrate with luminosity. Modern physicists have studied the phenomenon, noting how the angles of certain mirrors create interference patterns akin to quantum light experiments. An accidental discovery of wave-particle duality, centuries before Western science articulated it. Then there are the hidden geometries. From a distance, the mirrorwork appears abstract, but focus on specific sections and patterns emerge. Around the mihrab, hexagonal clusters form a honeycomb lattice, a nod to the Sufi concept of the divine matrix, where every part reflects the whole. Above the tomb itself, a swirling vortex of concave mirrors creates an optical illusion. Stand directly beneath it, and your reflection stretches toward infinity, as if peering into the layers of the universe. Restoration workers in the 1980s uncovered even more startling details, tiny symbols etched into the backs of some mirrors, visible only during disassembly. Most show celestial diagrams, but a few depict the human eye with a single teardrop, a motif found in medieval Sufi manuscripts representing the soul's yearning for union with God. The shrine's most guarded secret, though, lies in its acoustics. Chant a single note in the central chamber, and the sound doesn't echo, it swells as if the mirrors are singing back. Acoustic engineers attribute this to the uneven surface textures, which diffuse sound waves in unpredictable ways. But the devotees who gather here at dawn tell another story. They say the mirrors memorize the prayers of the faithful, releasing them again when the world needs them most. Whether physics or miracle, one thing is certain: this isn't decoration. It's a language. Every glint, every refraction is a word in a silent sermon about light's power to shatter and heal, to divide and unite. The mirrors don't just adorn Chogha. They are Chogha, a testament to the Persian genius for turning craft into cosmology, where even the humblest material can become a portal to the infinite. High on the barren hills outside Yazd, the Zoroastrian towers of silence rise like stone sentinels guarding the threshold between earth and sky. These circular, tiered platforms aren't just burial sites, they're carefully calibrated instruments of spiritual ecology, where every dimension and placement whispers of a belief system so precise it turned death itself into a sacred equation. Unlike tombs that conceal the departed, these towers expose bodies to the elements in a practice known as sky burial, where vultures act as intermediaries between the material and divine. But the real mystery isn't the ritual, it's the hidden logic etched into the stones beneath your feet. The tower's architecture holds the first clues. Each level corresponds to one of Zoroastrianism's three sacred virtues: good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, with concentric rings guiding mourners inward toward the central ossuary pit. The spacing between these rings isn't arbitrary. Measurements match ancient Avestan texts describing the soul's three-day journey to the afterlife. Even the tower's elevation follows strict rules built precisely 600 paces from residential areas, a distance calculated to prevent spiritual contamination while remaining visible enough to remind the living of mortality's inevitability. Then there are the baffling alignments. During excavations in the 1970s, archaeologists noticed channels carved into the platform's edges, initially assumed to drain rainwater. But when mapped against star charts, these grooves aligned with the constellation Corvus, the celestial crow, at specific dates in the Zoroastrian calendar. Was this stellar cartography a navigational guide for departing souls, or a way to synchronize burial rites with astrologically auspicious moments? The answer might lie in the tower's most unsettling feature: the stone slabs where bodies were placed. Their surfaces bear faint, spiraling grooves that seem to direct fluids toward the center, mimicking the Zoroastrian cosmological diagram of the river of separation that divides the material and spiritual worlds. But perhaps the most profound messages are written in absence. Unlike other sacred sites laden with artifacts, the towers are strikingly empty: no inscriptions, no markers, no personal effects. This wasn't negligence, it was doctrine. Zoroastrian texts describe death as the ultimate equalizer, where worldly status dissolves like flesh in the sun. The towers enforce this philosophy through their brutal symmetry. A child's bones mingle with a king's in the communal ossuary below, their identities erased by time and talons. Modern LiDAR scans have revealed even deeper layers of intentionality. The tower's foundations sit atop natural magnetic anomalies, creating subtle energy fluctuations that, whether by accident or design, disorient carrion insects, preserving the purity of decomposition by winged scavengers alone. Local legends speak of Zoroastrian priests who could predict the exact moment a body would be cleansed to the bone based on the angle of shadows crossing the platform. Whether myth or lost science, one truth endures: these silent rings of stone were never just about disposal. They were cosmic clocks, spiritual compasses, and perhaps most hauntingly, judgment halls where the elements themselves served as jury and executioner. Standing in their shadow today, long after the last sky burial, you can still feel the weight of their purpose. The wind carries no scent of decay, only the faint metallic tang of sun-baked stone. It's a reminder that the tower's greatest secret wasn't encoded in their design, but in the paradox they embodied: a faith so reverent of life's sanctity that it entrusted its final sacrament to the ruthless efficiency of nature's most maligned creatures. In their silence, they speak volumes about a worldview that saw no contradiction between the sacred and the savage, and a people who built not to defy death but to collaborate with it. Step into the courtyard of Khan-e Tabatabai in Kashan, and you'll quickly realize this isn't just a house, it's an instrument tuned to the rhythms of light and wind. The moment sunlight filters through its stained glass windows, the entire space transforms into a kaleidoscope of shifting colors, where geometric shapes dance across walls like living frescoes. But this isn't random beauty. Every pane, every prism was calculated with the precision of an astronomer's chart. The mansion's artisans didn't just decorate with glass, they weaponized it, turning sunlight into a medium for hidden messages. Take the courtyard's western wall at high noon. The stained glass oriel window seems to ignite, projecting a mosaic of interlocking hexagons onto the opposite plaster, a pattern that, if you follow its edges, traces the exact angle of the summer solstice sun. Wait an hour and the shapes morph into elongated diamonds, marking the sun's descent. By twilight, the designs dissolve into soft overlapping circles, mirroring the lunar cycles painted on the ceiling of the adjacent reception hall. Some scholars argue this was a primitive calendar, a way for the merchant family who lived here to track trade seasons without mechanical devices. Others see a symbolic language, the hexagons representing earthly or the 6 days of creation in Islamic cosmology, the circles hinting at divine unity. Then there's the sorcery of the wind catchers. These towering badgers aren't just passive air vents, they're acoustic architects. The shafts funnel desert breezes downward, but their inner surfaces are ribbed with carefully spaced grooves that transform wind into sound. At certain velocities, the airflow produces harmonic hums, subtle tones that resonate through specific rooms like natural background music. The effect is most pronounced in the basement's sardab, the cool retreat where summer meals were served. Here, the wind's whisper amplifies as it passes over water channels, creating vibrations that seem to synchronize with the stained glass light patterns above. Was this synesthesia by design, a multisensory experience meant to evoke paradise gardens? The house's archives offer a clue. Faded ledger entries mention payments to a naqsh-e, a maker of musical water clocks, suggesting the Tabatabes were patrons of experimental art-science fusions. But the mansion's most startling secret lies in its whispering gallery. The second-floor corridor, with its concave plaster walls and domed ceiling, allows two people standing at opposite ends to hear each other's murmurs as clearly as if they were side by side. Unlike European whispering galleries that rely on circular geometry, this one uses a parabolic curve, a mathematical innovation predating Western acoustical studies by centuries. The real genius, though, is in the niches. Small, seemingly decorative alcoves along the corridor actually act as sound filters, dampening certain frequencies while amplifying others. Stand in one spot and you'll hear a child's laugh from 30 feet away. Move 3 steps left and the sound vanishes, replaced by the almost imperceptible trickle of the Qanat water running beneath the house. It's as if the walls themselves are curating what you hear, playing conductor to an invisible orchestra of domestic sounds. Then there's the mystery of the mirrored peepholes. Scattered throughout the mansion, these tiny reflective lenses, no larger than a coin, are embedded in walls at seemingly random heights, until you notice they align perfectly with the stained glass windows when viewed from specific vantage points. Peer through one at dawn, and the rising sun projects a miniature replica of the window's pattern onto your eye, a fleeting moment where architecture becomes retinal art. Were these optical quirks meant for surveillance, spiritual contemplation, or simply the playful excess of a family who treated their home as a living puzzle box? The Tabatabes left no written key to their house's wonders, but walk its corridors during the golden hour when the wind catchers sigh and the stained glass paints the floor with fleeting constellations, and you'll understand, this was never just a residence. It was a manifesto in brick and glass, proof that even the most utilitarian spaces could hold poetry if you knew how to listen and where to look. Walking through Finn Garden's tranquil pathways, the first thing you notice isn't the lush greenery or the delicate mosaics, it's the water. It's everywhere. Crystal-clear streams trace geometric patterns across the earth, cascading in perfect stair-step terraces, pooling beneath pavilions where the reflections of cypress trees sway like ink spilled on mercury. But this isn't just irrigation or decoration. Every drop, every channel is a stanza in a liquid poem about paradise. Start with the garden's famed central water channel, straight as a blade dividing the space into symmetrical halves. At face value, it's a textbook example of Persian charbagh design, 4 quadrants symbolizing the Zoroastrian divisions of the universe. But follow the water's journey and the metaphor deepens. The main artery originates from a single spring beneath the Safavid pavilion, emerging with such force that local legends claim it's fed by underground rivers from Mount Damavand. This isn't fantasy. Hydrologists confirm the spring's mineral content matches distant volcanic sources. The ancients saw divine engineering at work, a literal axis mundi, with earthly waters drawn from cosmic depths to mirror the Quranic rivers of paradise, Salsabil, Tasnim, and Kauthar, said to flow beneath God's throne. Then there's the water's choreography. Notice how it slows near the garden's thresholds, forming mirror-still pools that double the archways above, a deliberate illusion blurring the line between structure and reflection. This wasn't just aesthetic. Persian mystical texts describe paradise as a place where boundaries dissolve, where the soul sees its own image in God's gaze. The architects encoded this theology in hydraulic design. Even the sound is orchestrated. Shallow steps create a constant, gentle murmur that medieval visitors likened to the whispering of Auris, the celestial maiden's promise to the righteous. But the garden's most profound secret lies in what the water carries, or rather, what it doesn't. Unlike European fountains that recirculate, Finn's channels follow a strict one-way path. Water enters pure from the spring, meanders through the garden, and exits forever, a liquid metaphor for the soul's journey from divine source to earthly experience and back. The symbolism crescendos at the Black Pavilion, where Abbas II once held court. Here, the main channel vanishes into a subterranean duct beneath the floor, re-emerging in the sunken bathhouse where his assassinated chancellor, Amir Kabir, took his final breath. The message is stark. Even paradise has its shadows, and water, like fate, flows inexorably toward endings. Yet the garden's true genius might be in its defiance. Despite desert heat, the microclimate stays unnaturally cool, thanks to an ancient understanding of evaporative physics. The Cypress Alley's funnel breezes over water channels, dropping temperatures by nearly 20 degrees, a practical miracle that echoes the Quran's promise of shade in paradise. Modern engineers recently uncovered another marvel. The channel's depth varies by mere centimeters, calibrated to create capillary action that prevents stagnation without human intervention. It's as if the garden maintains its own purity, a self-regulating Eden. Stand here at dusk when the last light turns the water to liquid gold, and you'll understand why Finn's builders inscribed poetry along its canals. The verses aren't decorations, they're translations. When Hafez wrote, "Every leaf is a page of divine scripture," he might as well have been describing this place where water isn't just water, but a sacred script written in currents and reflections, waiting for anyone who thinks to read it. Rising from the Yazd desert like a stone mirage, the caravanserai of Zain-od-Din doesn't just break the horizon, it bends it. This 16th century way station for Silk Road travelers is one of only 2 circular caravanserais in all of Persia, its perfect ring of sun-baked clay walls defying the angular norms of Islamic architecture. At first glance, the design seems purely aesthetic, a graceful anomaly in a land of square courtyards. But walk its circumference and patterns emerge that hint at something far more deliberate. Every archway, every chamber aligns with mathematical precision, as if the builders were tracing celestial movements rather than drafting floor plans. The caravanserai's most striking feature is its rooftop. Unlike typical flat terraces, Zain-od-Din's upper level forms a continuous walkway circling the entire structure, offering unobstructed views of the desert in every direction. By day, this served practical needs. Guards could spot approaching caravans or bandits from any angle, but by night, the stones whisper another purpose. Local astronomers have noted that the parapet's notches align with specific stars during the spring and autumn equinoxes, creating a makeshift observatory. The northern quadrant's arches frame Polaris with uncanny accuracy, while the southern corridor perfectly captures the rise of Sirius, the blue desert star that guided ancient navigators. Was this intentional? The builders left no star charts, but the evidence is compelling. Merchant logs found in the caravanserai's archives contain detailed notes about planetary movements, scribbled alongside trade inventories. Then there's the mystery of the central courtyard's acoustics. The circular design creates a phenomenon where whispers spoken near the well carry clearly to specific upper chambers, particularly the now crumbled room historians believe was reserved for the caravanserai's master. Some scholars argue this was an early surveillance system, allowing the innkeeper to monitor clandestine conversations between merchants. Others point to Sufi poetry inscribed in the alcoves, suggesting the acoustics facilitated spiritual gatherings where mystical verses could be heard simultaneously throughout the space. The most tantalizing clue: certain niches in the walls are shaped like parabolic reflectors, amplifying sound toward a single focal point where a leader, or perhaps a spy, could stand unseen. But the caravanserai's true secret might lie beneath the stones. Recent ground-penetrating radar revealed a network of tunnels radiating outward from the central well-like spokes on a wheel. These aren't typical Qanat water channels, they're too narrow, too deliberately spaced. One theory posits they were escape routes for merchants smuggling goods past tax collectors. Another suggests they served as resonance chambers designed to amplify specific frequencies during rituals. The most provocative hypothesis comes from a weathered scrap of parchment found lodged in a wall cavity, describing the circle where earth meets sky and the gathering of the 36, a possible reference to a secret society of astronomer traders who met here to share forbidden knowledge. Standing in Zain-o-Din's shadow at dusk, when the desert wind hums through its arches, you can almost hear the echoes of camel bells and whispered negotiations. This wasn't just a pit stop, it was a crossroads of commerce and cosmology where the geometry of profit intersected with the mysteries of the heavens. Whether observatory, sanctuary, or clandestine meeting place, one truth remains. In the vast silence of the desert, the caravanserai's perfect circle still feels like a portal, a stone cipher waiting for the right combination of stars and starlight to reveal its final secret. In Shiraz, where orange blossoms perfume the air, the tomb of Hafez isn't just a memorial, it's a three-dimensional manuscript, its stones inlaid with secrets from the poet's verses. At first glance, the pavilion seems simple: 8 slender columns supporting a tiled dome, open on all sides to the surrounding garden, but count the columns again. 8 wasn't an arbitrary choice in Persian mysticism. It represents the threshold between earthly existence and divine unity, a theme Hafez wove through his ghazals like golden thread. The space between these pillars isn't empty, it's a stage where sunlight and shadow perform the poet's eternal dance of absence and longing. The garden layout holds its own coded messages. Pathways don't run straight but meander in deliberate curves, mirroring the nonlinear journey of the soul in Hafez's work. Cypress trees flank the tomb not merely for shade, their upward thrust symbolizes the lover's aspiration, while the fragrant myrtles at their base embody the beloved's intoxicating presence. Even the water channels trace calligraphic patterns when viewed from above, their flowing curves spelling out the Arabic word ishq, love, in liquid script. This wasn't landscape design, it was sacred geometry in foliage and stone. Beneath the dome, the real alchemy begins. The tombstone itself is a puzzle carved from solid porphyry, its surface inscribed with verses chosen not for their fame but for their numerical significance. Each line corresponds to an abjad cipher, an ancient system where Arabic letters represent numbers. Add them up and they total 786, a sacred figure in Islamic mysticism equal to the phrase, "in the name of God." The surrounding tiles amplify this numerology. Their turquoise and gold motifs repeat in clusters of 14, mirroring the number of syllables in a perfect Persian hemistich. Walk around the tomb counterclockwise as pilgrims do, and the tile patterns seem to shift like verses rearranging themselves, a visual echo of Hafez's famous line. The words keep changing, but the wine remains the same. The most startling revelation lies overhead. The dome's interior isn't decorated with typical floral arabesques, but with stars, 7-pointed stars, a rarity in Islamic art. To Sufis, 7 represents the stages of spiritual ascent, a journey Hafez described as climbing the ladder of the sky on the rungs of my own size. During the equinox, sunlight filters through the stars' perforations, casting constellation-like patterns that travel across the tombstone in precise synchronization with the shadow of the surrounding cypress. It's as if the entire structure ticks like some celestial clock, measuring not hours but epiphanies, yet the tomb's deepest secret might be its emptiness. Local legends insist Hafez's body isn't actually interred here, that his true resting place was hidden to protect it from fanatics who considered his poetry heretical. Whether fact or myth, the symbolism resonates. For a poet who wrote, "I am just a hole in a flute through which Christ's breath moves," what better monument than an open pavilion where the wind sings through columns like notes from some divine melody? The visitors who gather here at dusk, reading from the divan spread across their laps, aren't just honoring a dead poet. They're stepping into an architectural ghazal, one where every brick is a metaphor, every shadow a couplet, and the whole structure whispers the same truth Hafez did 8 centuries ago: that beauty isn't just seen. It's decoded. Stepping into Nasir al-Mulk Mosque at dawn is like walking into the heart of a rose. Sunlight bleeds through stained glass windows, splashing the Persian carpets and intricately tiled walls with liquid pools of ruby, saffron, and emerald. But this isn't just a play of light. It's a meticulously choreographed ritual, one that transforms the mosque into a living cipher of color and time. The windows, each pane hand cut into geometric perfection, are far more than decoration. They're celestial calculators, their pigments and angles fine-tuned to mark the passage of seasons, prayer times, and perhaps even moments of spiritual significance lost to modern understanding. Take the mosque's famed eastern window, where the glass fractures morning light into a kaleidoscope that creeps across the prayer hall like a sundial made of rainbows. Between late March and mid-September, roughly corresponding to the Persian New Year through the autumn equinox, the projections form a perfect rectangle on the Qibla wall, its borders aligning with the mihrab's arch just as the sun reaches its zenith. Some scholars argue this was a visual marker for noon prayers, a silent muezzin woven into architecture. Others, examining the mosque's original blueprints, found notes in the margins referencing the light of Fravashi, a Zoroastrian concept of divine illumination. Could the builders have embedded older solar traditions into an Islamic space, letting the patterns whisper of a shared reverence for celestial mechanics? Then there's the mystery of the pink tiles. The mosque's nickname, Pink Mosque, comes from its rosy-toned ceramics, but their hue shifts throughout the day. Deep coral at sunrise, soft blush at midday, fiery magenta at dusk. This isn't accidental weathering. Restoration teams discovered the tiles contain trace amounts of cobalt and gold, metals chosen not just for durability but for their light-reactive properties. When the stained glass projections intersect these surfaces during winter solstice, the entire southern wall appears to glow from within, as if the bricks themselves are burning with some inner radiance. 19th century travel journals described dervishes who would meditate here during these moments, claiming the light granted visions. Modern physicists offer a less mystical explanation. The phenomenon occurs when specific wavelengths excite electrons in the tile's glaze, creating a brief luminescence. But the why remains. Was this a symbolic representation of divine light or something more practical, a way to warm the prayer space during winter's shortest days? The real enigma, though, lies in the windows' patterns. At first glance, their floral motifs seem purely decorative until you map their projections over a year. The shadows of certain petals elongate during Ramadan, forming shapes that resemble Arabic letters. In one notorious example, the shadow play spells Arabic Noon, Arabic Wow, Arabic Rot, Nor, meaning light on the winter solstice, a day ancient Persian cultures associated with the rebirth of the sun. Skeptics call this pareidolia, the human tendency to find meaning in randomness. but the mosque's architect, Muhammad Hassan-e Memar, left cryptic notes about writing with sunlight, and recent spectral analysis revealed that some red glass panels contain minuscule inclusions of copper and selenium, elements that filter light to enhance specific hues at predetermined angles. Perhaps the most haunting detail is what happens when no one's watching. Guards who open the mosque before dawn speak of an anomaly. On cloudless mornings, minutes before sunrise, the empty prayer hall fills with a faint, rosy glow. No direct sunlight, no explainable source. Some attribute it to reflected light from the marble floors. Others swear the tiles retain traces of yesterday's radiance, like a battery slowly discharging. The builders took the truth with them, but stand there in that hushed pre-dawn light, watching the first colorful slivers creep across the tiles, and you'll feel it the uncanny certainty that every beam, every shadow, is exactly where it's meant to be. Not just beautiful, not just sacred, but saying something, if only we knew how to listen. Towering over Shur as like a fortress woven from clay and sunlight, Arg-e Qabus hides its messages not in inscriptions or reliefs, but in the very bricks that hold it together. At first glance, the citadel's walls appear uniformly sturdy, their ochre hues blending into the city's palette, but train your eye along their surface and the patterns emerge. Subtle zigzags near the battlements, diamond-shaped clusters above the gateways, even occasional rows where every fourth brick protrudes slightly further than its neighbors. These aren't construction quirks, they're a carefully composed language in terracotta, spelling out the ambitions of Karim Khan, the Zand ruler who built this citadel not just to dominate the skyline, but to rewrite history itself. Begin with the southwest facade, where the bricks form a mesmerizing herringbone pattern. Unlike typical military architecture favoring plain, impenetrable surfaces, this design almost invites closer inspection, a bold choice for a ruler who famously rejected the title of Shah, preferring the humble, Vakil al-Raya, advocate of the people. The herringbone, used since ancient times in Persian weaving, may have been a visual nod to Shiraz's artisans, whose support helped cement Karim Khan's rule. But there's a martial twist. The angle of each brick mirrors the optimal slope for deflecting cannon fire, a defensive innovation decades ahead of its time. The message is clear. This was a fortress built by the people for the people, yet armed with quiet genius. Then there's the citadel's most puzzling feature, its gently sloping walls. While many Persian forts taper upward for stability, Arg-e Qabus' incline follows an unusual ratio, 3 degrees steeper on the northern side than the southern. Some historians attribute this to Shiraz's uneven bedrock, but others point to the Zand dynasty's northern tribal roots. The imbalance could have been symbolic, a deliberate architectural lean toward the homeland that spawned Karim Khan's power base. Even more telling are the brick courses marking the transition between slopes. Alternating bands of darker, kiln-hardened bricks form faint stripes visible only at certain angles. These may correspond to the exact years when Karim Khan consolidated control over rival factions, turning the walls into a vertical timeline of his rise. But the real cipher lies in the citadel's corners. Each of the 4 massive cylindrical towers sports a different brick motif: chevrons on one, spirals on another, checkerboards on a third. At their bases, these patterns appear orderly, but as they ascend, the designs grow increasingly complex, culminating in intricate interlocking stars near the parapets. This progression mirrors the Zand dynasty's own narrative. From humble beginnings to cultural renaissance, contemporary accounts describe how Karim Khan commissioned poets and scholars to translate these patterns into verse, creating mnemonic couplets that helped citizens read the citadel's story. A single brick in this context wasn't just a building block, it was a syllable in an epic poem written in clay. The most haunting detail, though, emerges at sunset. When the dying light strikes the western facade at a 19-degree angle precisely on the anniversary of Karim Khan's death, the shadows transform the brickwork. What appeared random suddenly resolves into a vast, barely discernible calligraphic panel spelling "Esteklal Independence" in Naskh script. Whether optical illusion or intentional marvel, the effect encapsulates the Zand ruler's legacy, power that doesn't shout but waits patiently for the right light to reveal its depths. The citadel doesn't just commemorate a dynasty, it becomes a living testament to the idea that true authority isn't wielded through force alone, but through the quiet, enduring eloquence of craftsmanship. Rising from the arid plains near Kashan like a stepped mountain dreaming of the sky, the ziggurat of Syalk holds secrets far older than its crumbling mud brick layers suggest. This 7,000-year-old structure predates even the earliest Egyptian pyramids, its weathered terraces whispering of a time when writing itself was being born. But the real treasure isn't the ziggurat's imposing silhouette. It's the thousands of clay tablets buried in its shadow, etched with markings so enigmatic they've resisted decipherment for over a century. These aren't just ancient ledgers or royal decrees. They're fragments of a lost language, Proto-Elamite, one of humanity's first experiments in capturing speech with symbols, abandoned before it could fully mature. Walk the excavation trenches around Syalk today, and you'll notice something peculiar. The tablets aren't scattered randomly. They cluster in specific areas, often aligned along cardinal points as if placed with ritual precision. Some bear neat rows of wedge-shaped impressions, early ancestors of cuneiform, while others explode with bizarre hybrid symbols, part pictogram, part abstract notation. What's most fascinating is what they don't contain. Unlike later Mesopotamian tablets with their dynastic boasts and epic poetry, Syalk's inscriptions show almost no signs of narrative. Instead, they're dominated by repetitive sequences of signs followed by numerical tallies, suggesting an obsession with quantification that borders on the obsessive. Were these temple inventories, celestial calculations, or something more profound? A system for encoding ideas that never found its voice? The mystery deepens when you examine the symbols themselves. Some resemble everyday objects, grain sheaves, birds, vessels, but others defy interpretation. Spirals that could represent time or water, grids that might denote land divisions or astral maps. A handful of recurring signs have been tentatively linked to later Elamite words for god, king, and temple, but the majority remains stubbornly opaque. Even more puzzling is the apparent lack of grammatical structure. Proto-Elamite shows no clear evidence of verbs or syntax, just cascades of nouns and numbers, like a language reduced to its bare bones. Some linguists argue this wasn't a failure, but a deliberate abstraction, a symbolic system meant for elite scribes rather than common speech. Others believe we're seeing language in its infancy, a cerebral experiment that died stillborn when more practical writing systems emerged. Then there's the ziggurat's alignment. Unlike later Mesopotamian towers oriented to cardinal points, Syalk staircases and terraces angle slightly northeast, aligning with the sunrise during the summer solstice. This deviation, mere degrees off true north, might hold the key to the tablet's purpose. Infrared imaging of the surrounding plain reveals buried channels that once funneled water from distant springs directly to the ziggurat's base. Combine this with the tablet's numerical sequences and a theory emerges. Syalk may have been a vast hydrological computer, its priests using the tablets to predict seasonal floods and allocate water rights in Persia's thirsty heartland. The symbols could represent canal networks, crop yields, or offerings to water deities, a bureaucratic religion where every drop was accounted for in clay. But the most tantalizing clue lies in the tablet's fragility. Unlike sun-baked cuneiform tablets that hardened over millennia, many Proto-Elamite tablets were deliberately fired at low temperatures, leaving them brittle as dried leaves. This wasn't carelessness, it was design. Recent experiments show these tablets, when heated to just 200 degrees Celsius, release a faint odor resembling burnt barley. Was this a ritual act, a way to send messages to the gods through smoke and scent? or perhaps something more pragmatic, early attempts at archival preservation where firing sealed the clay against moisture? The answer might lie in the handful of tablets bearing fingerprint impressions, not just scribes but children's. Tiny, careful fingers pressed into the margins, as if literacy began young in Syalk's shadow, or perhaps as if the act of imprinting clay held significance beyond mere record-keeping. Standing atop the ziggurate's ruined heights today, watching the wind scour dust from half-excavated tablets below, you realize Syalk's greatest message isn't written in its symbols. It's in their sheer persistence. For 7 millennia, these fragile clay rectangles have waited, silent witnesses to the birth and death of 100 later civilizations. They remind us that writing wasn't born perfect. It stumbled, experimented, failed, and reinvented itself in places like this. The Proto-Elamite script may never be fully decoded. But in its stubborn silence, it speaks volumes about humanity's endless drive to make marks, to say, "We were here, whether the future understands us or not." Soaring over Tehran's skyline like a gateway frozen in time, the Azadi Tower is more than just a monument. It's a conversation between centuries. At first glance, its stark white marble and soaring parabolic arch feel ultramodern, a symbol of Iran's 1971 celebration of 2,500 years of empire. But lean closer, and the tower's secrets reveal themselves in the quiet rebellion of its proportions. Every measurement, every curve, whispers of a deliberate fusion. The arch's silhouette mirrors the great taq-e of the Sassanids, while the intricate tilework patterning its underbelly echoes the geometric precision of Isfahan's mosques. This isn't just architectural homage, it's alchemy, transforming ancient motifs into a modernist manifesto. The tower's designer, Hossein Amanat, didn't merely borrow from history, he encrypted it. The structure's height, 45 meters, matches the exact numerical value of the word Azadi, freedom, in Abjad numerology, an ancient system where Arabic letters correspond to numbers. Meanwhile, the tower's base forms a perfect square, symbolizing earth and stability, while the arch soars into a circle representing the celestial realm. Together, they create a silhouette that recalls the Persian cosmological ideal, the marriage of earthly kingship and divine mandate, a concept stretching back to Cyrus. Even the building materials carry coded meaning. The Isfahan marble, chosen for its luminous quality, reflects sunlight in patterns that shift with the seasons, casting shadows that align with the tower's hidden inscriptions during equinoxes. But the real cipher lies in the tower's interior. Descend into its underground museum, and you'll find the walls lined with a mosaic of 20,000 unique tiles, no two alike. Some bear floral patterns lifted from Achaemenid reliefs, others shimmer with Quranic calligraphy rendered in angular Kufic script. This mosaic isn't random. When viewed from the central atrium, the tiles resolve into a vast, fragmented image of the Zoroastrian god Ahura Mazda's winged symbol, interlaced with the Islamic phrase Allahu Akbar. The message is subtle but undeniable. Iran's identity isn't a choice between pre-Islamic and Islamic glory, but a continuum where both pulse through the same cultural bloodstream. Then there's the enigma of the tower's acoustics. The arch's curvature creates a sound vortex where whispers spoken at the western base travel upward and rebound near the crown, a phenomenon Amanat reportedly designed after studying the echo chambers of Persepolis's Apadana Palace. During the 1971 celebrations, this effect was used to dramatic purpose. Poets recited verses at ground level, their voices mysteriously amplified above the crowds as if the tower itself were speaking. Some claim the acoustics were calibrated to resonate at the same frequency as traditional Persian ney flute music, creating an auditory bridge between ancient and modern. Perhaps the tower's most provocative secret is one few visitors notice. The entire structure leans ever so slightly, just 2 degrees off true vertical. Officially, this is attributed to soil settlement, but Amanat's notebooks, recently unearthed in an architectural archive, hint at intention. The lean points precisely toward Pasargadae, Cyrus the Great's capital, as if the tower is bowing to the past even as it reaches for the future. Whether structural poetry or happy accident, the effect is the same. A monument that refuses to stand rigidly in any single era, but instead exists in the liminal space between histories, whispering to those who understand its silent language. Stand beneath the arch at dusk when the last light turns the marble to molten gold, and you'll feel it, the weight of millennia distilled into concrete and tile. The Azadi Tower doesn't just commemorate Persian continuity, it performs it stone by stone, shadow by shadow. In a city where skyscrapers now dwarf its silhouette, the tower's power endures not in its height but in its quiet insistence that the future, if it's to be meaningful, must always converse with the past. From the silent riddles of Cyrus the Great's tomb to the light-woven prayers of Nasir al-Mulk Mosque, these 30 monuments aren't just stone and mortar, they're a language. Each one speaks in codes, the whisper of wind through Rayan Castle's tactical bricks, the celestial mathematics of Gonbad-e Qabus, the Sufi verses hidden in Haruniyya dome's geometry. Persia's architects didn't just build, they encrypted their wisdom into every arch and alcove, leaving behind puzzles that challenge us to rethink history. The Apadana staircase's missing Greeks, the submerged prophecies of taq-e Solomon's Lake, the acoustic sorcery of Ali Kapu's music room, these aren't accidents. They're breadcrumbs left across centuries, daring us to follow. What becomes clear is how deeply these structures intertwine the practical and the profound. The Chogha Zanbil ziggurates hydraulic rituals, Finn Garden's self-regulating waterways, even the caravanserai of Zayn Odin's stellar alignments. They reveal a civilization that saw no divide between science and spirituality. Water wasn't just diverted, it was consecrated. Stars weren't merely observed, they were consulted. And every brick from a Bienne's sunburnt village homes to the Azadi Tower's numerology-infused marble carries dual purpose to serve the body and awaken the mind. This is the genius of Persian monuments. Their messages aren't locked away in scrolls or buried in vaults. They're broadcast in sunlight and shadow, in the angle of a doorway or the echo of a whisper. You don't need a cipher to understand them, just curiosity. Stand in Vank Cathedral's courtyard where Islamic crescents cradle Christian crosses, or trace the Zoroastrian stars hidden in Shah Cherog's mirror shards, and you'll feel it, the pulse of a culture that mastered the art of speaking to the future without saying a word. So here's the invitation, go see them. Walk the worn steps of Persepolis at dawn when the reliefs come alive with long delegated gifts. Listen for the phantom harmonies in Ali Kapu when the wind blows just right. Or start with the photos and manuscripts. Let your fingertips trace the proto-Elamite tablets of Syilx, still stubbornly silent after 7 millennia. And when you find your own connection, when you catch a glimpse of the pattern behind the pattern, share it. The comments are open for theories, for revelations, even for respectful debate. Because these monuments were never meant to be solved, only to keep the conversation alive across the ages. After all, the greatest hidden message might be this: history isn't a monologue. It's a call and response, and your voice belongs in the chorus.